Hello, Giants fans. Thank you for watching the Giants Alliance channel. Today, I have a very special guest, and he is not a Giants fan. His name is SpaceCowboy. He has a big Cowboys YouTube channel. Definitely check it out in the description. How are you doing today? And I want to thank you for being on the show.
First of all, thank you so much. It's great, talking football. I know that the environment is just crazy, and we're just craving for sports. Glad to be on here talking football and stuff like that. And I could say this over and over again, but yeah, thank you so much.
Yeah, it's really cool that you agreed to come on my show. I want to shout out Cowboys X Factor because he's the one who put me on to you. He said you had an awesome channel, so definitely shout out to him. And I wrote an article recently for my website, nygiantsalliance.com, kind of comparing the Giants and the Cowboys position by position, which I want to ask you about. But first, I want to ask you, because you do have a very good channel, and it's definitely growing. It's very big at this point. But what made you get involved in starting a Cowboys YouTube channel?
Well, let's see. So I started YouTube videos back in 2015, and the main inspiration was, I'm not sure if you're familiar with him, the Dallas Cowboy show in Shango. He's one of the original big content creators when it comes to Dallas Cowboys stuff. And of course there are other ones that came about, like Law Nation, Voch Lombardi and stuff like that. They kind of also inspired me to do certain things and basically just not emulate them. I'm not trying to copy someone, but basically try to do the format of just talking, recording, and doing whatever I got to do. But basically, it was Shango, the Dallas Cowboys show. If you're a Cowboys fan, you know who I'm talking about. That really got me started back then, and it kind of just went from there. I wasn't expecting to get 5,000 subscribers.
Yeah, that's awesome, man. And I was checking out a lot of your videos recently. I really enjoyed the one about the NFC East because you were discussing the Giants, and I wanted to ask you a little bit about that.
Yeah, sure.
But yeah, let me start off with that because you mentioned that you think the Giants could possibly go 7-9, and you were talking about Jason Garrett. So that's the thing that I'm interested in asking you, because as a Cowboys fan, I'm interested to know how you felt when the Giants hired Jason Garrett as their offensive coordinator. Did that make you happy as a Cowboys fan, or were you like, oh no, is that a good hire or not?
So here's the thing: not to be like this, but a lot of Giants fans, some I've seen are indifferent with it. Some people are super happy with it because they try to go back and be like, oh well, when he was an offensive coordinator, he was really good. But recency bias should tell you that Jason Garrett is at best a mediocre head coach. People that know me know that I'm not the biggest fan of Jason Garrett, but I'm not going to sit here and say the guy's garbage. I don't believe he's a horrible head coach, but at the same time, he's one of those guys that didn't get you over the top. So for me, if I'm Joe Judge, you just got to be careful because Jason Garrett is a guy that he's basically I don't want to be like this because it's this isn't really the case, but it's your de facto head coach. I don't know if he's your official assistant head coach or if you have one, but if I'm Joe Judge, just be careful with Jason Garrett because he's the guy, in the wing if he doesn't work out. And with Jason Garrett's history with the Cowboys, really not really done well with assembling a coaching staff of his own. Either way, I do think you guys had to move on from Pat Shurmur. I think it was definitely going to be detrimental for your team, because he really wasn't doing much to get to where you wanted to go. But at the same time, it's really tough because when you do a coaching search, the Giants are a team where it's over the past couple of years, they've tried to contend with Eli, and that hasn't worked, right? They tried to get Saquon to help him out. They tried to get some weapons. There was only 1 year, and that was in 2016, where they tried to contend. Otherwise, it's not been good for them, and that didn't help with Eli's regression and stuff like that. But my thing is that with the Giants, they're at a point where it's okay, they're adding some talent and key pieces. I think they're on the right track, but they just got to make sure they continue building. So I think that ultimately with your coaching staff, I think Joe Judge is a wild card. I don't know what he's going to be like. But ultimately, I think that Jason Garrett should be fine with Daniel Jones, but I would just be careful. Ultimately.
Yeah, I've heard that because obviously he was offensive coordinator before he became head coach, and then Wade Phillips was the head coach, and there was debate over whether he was throwing games or not calling the plays as well as a way to try to get the head coaching job. I don't know if that's actually true, but It's just interesting because, yeah, you're right. He might be waiting in the wings for a possible head coaching job in the future. But I was actually indifferent when I heard that we hired Jason Garrett as offensive coordinator. I
Hmm.
thought he definitely underachieved with the Cowboys because you guys have so much talent and you
Definitely.
definitely have been drafting really well in recent years. And for you not to make the playoffs last year and for you guys to not really have so much playoff success kind of falls on the shoulders of Jason Garrett, in my opinion. But one hire from the Cowboys that I was actually really excited about and more excited than Jason Garrett was Mark Colombo. So do you think Mark Colombo, since he was your offensive line coach last year, do you think he can make a big impact on the Giants, or do you think it's really more that the Cowboys have had such good personnel on the offensive line and that maybe Giants fans are getting too excited about the hire?
I would honestly say it's a mixture of both. Look, let's be honest here. The Giants' offensive line has not been good in recent years because they haven't really spent a quality pick or resources on the offensive line. Yeah, they brought in Nate Solder, but I was very apprehensive with that signing because Nate Solder is not that great, honestly. But, and he really showed when he went to New York. But if I'm the Giants, they did a great job. I was saying like I know some I forget who someone was mentioning like, oh, we should get Isaiah Simmons with the fourth pick. I'm like, no, you need to get an offensive tackle to protect Daniel Jones. Daniel Jones is a guy that you look, if he's your franchise quarterback, you need to get someone to be right beside him for 10 plus years to make sure that he's protected. You got that guy in Andrew Thomas, I believe, right? It was Andrew Thomas, I think.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, the fourth
Um
pick.
and yeah, and it's like look, I think that you got a guy in Will Hernandez who's solid. He's a
Hmm.
solid guy. I mean, he's still young. And
Yeah.
then you add a guy in Andrew Thomas who I believe will be playing left tackle. Well, then again, I don't know what he's going to do. I don't know what the
Yeah,
plan.
I don't even know. I think it's up in the air at this point whether he's right or left tackle. I think he should be at left tackle,
That's
but
me
yeah,
personally what I think. But getting
yeah,
back to my original point, I think the Giants they've done good in recent memory to try and build up that offensive line, and I think that adding Mark Colombo will help. Honestly, I think that a big thing is like Mark Colombo. I think his work in 2018 with what we had to work with, with pretty not really good offensive linemen, and still they were able to do their job is telling. So if I'm the Giants, I think I would be excited for the hire of Mark Colombo, but ultimately it's just going to come down to how the players do. So
yeah. It's definitely comes down to how good your personnel is. Will Hernandez is somebody that had a really good rookie year, and then I thought he regressed a little bit last year, and I do blame a little bit of that on the coaching staff because a lot of our young players didn't really progress in their second and third years last year. So I'm hoping with Jason Garrett and Mark Colombo and some of the other coaches with Joe Judge that we can see a lot of improvement this year. But yeah, you were mentioning that Andrew Thomas was a great pick for Daniel Jones, and of course, Daniel Jones is our most important player. And I mean, if you think back to like Andrew Luck, he had so much promise. He could have been like the next great one, but the Colts never surrounded him with a good offensive line. So you do make a really good point. And I was actually one of those people that wanted Isaiah Simmons, but if you think about it from that perspective of Andrew Luck getting all those injuries and getting beat up over the years, it makes a lot of sense that like, you got to protect your franchise guy. But I wanted to actually ask you about the quarterbacks because in my column, I put Dak Prescott as a better quarterback than Daniel Jones when I compared the quarterback positions.
yeah,
And I think you guys actually have the best backup quarterback in the league. I think Dalton is good enough to win if he has like a good supporting cast like you guys have. But the one thing with Daniel Jones is I think he's going to be better in a couple of years. I think his upside is higher than Dak Prescott, and you might disagree with this. And then
hmm
another thing is Prescott's going to make so much money, and Jones is going to be on his rookie contract for like a few more years. So I think that's going to help the Giants, possibly overtake the Cowboys in a couple of years. I don't think this year, but do you agree with that assessment? Do you think that Jones has a higher upside than Prescott, or do you think I'm just overhyping
um,
my own quarterback?
well, no, I think ultimately, look, you spent a sixth overall pick on a guy that you would hope he has a better ceiling than Dak Prescott, right? You spent high end draft capital. Dak Prescott's a fourth round rookie. Now, me personally, I think that Um, I think that Daniel Jones has the ability to be better than Dak if things work out. But for me, Dak Prescott has consistently gotten better to the point to where, honestly, I don't know what his ceiling is. I don't think he's peaked yet. And for Daniel Jones, and I usually, when it comes to quarterbacks, especially young ones, I can't really grade their progression until the second or third year, mainly due to the fact that it's like I want to see a track record. With Dak, he was putting up consistent numbers, and then he exploded in 2019, and then 2020 is going to determine if he's going to be at that top level status going forward. With Daniel Jones, it's funny because I didn't think it like I think they could have managed that draft better if I'm being completely honest. But otherwise, I don't think Daniel Jones was a bad quarterback coming out of Duke. I just think the problem was like yeah, there are issues he has, and yes, he's going to fix them, but I think the upside's there. And honestly, I'm a firm believer, and if he's your guy, you take him.
Yeah.
But otherwise, look, Dak's the better quarterback right now. Now, I will say this. I do think that Daniel Jones will be a top 15 quarterback in this league at some point. He showed some really damn good promise as a rookie. There were, I think, like 4 or 3 games where he had like 4 touchdowns and 300 yards, like, and no other rookie's done that. And I think that the biggest thing is I really hope if I'm the Giants, you want to try and increase his what's the word I'm looking for? His pocket, not a pocket awareness, but basically like
His pocket presence. He did have a little bit of tunnel vision, I thought.
That's what bothered me a bit. But another thing is his fumbling problem. If he could fix his fumbling problem, I think he can definitely be a damn good quarterback. So.
Yeah, I think that's such a big key for him. He had, I think, 11 lost fumbles last year, and they would always come in like really big drives during the game and just really killed the team. I wouldn't say that all of those fumbles were his fault because, like you said, Nate Solder was really bad last year. He gave up over 50 pressures, but
no, exactly.
I think you're right that Jones probably does have higher upside. Remember, Jones was a 6th overall pick. That's a really good point. Prescott was a 4th round pick out of Mississippi State, but he's still been getting better and better every year. Do you think he has the upside to be better than Tony Romo, or do you even think he's better than Romo now? Because if you look at their stats, his stats are very comparable to Tony Romo. So I'm just interested in your thoughts about that. Because
see, this is coming from someone that's huge. I love Tony Romo growing up.
Yeah.
He, one of my favorite quarterbacks of all time. But if I'm being completely honest, Dak Prescott, I think, is already on pace to supersede Tony Romo. I think is he better than Romo? Well, here's the problem. Like, Romo at the end of his career was a much polished passer, and like he's more refined and he already knows the game. But if we're talking about like progression-wise from when they both started their careers, Dak Prescott's easily the better quarterback because Romo was on the bench for 3.5 years, and Dak Prescott's already going into his 5th year with 4 years of experience in playing in all 16 games. So I think that ultimately Dak Prescott at this juncture, comparing their careers, is the better quarterback, and I think ultimately he's going to end up being the better quarterback. And I don't think that's an unfair assessment to make. And I want to.
Are you surprised? I'm sorry to cut you off, but like I used to love rooting against Tony Romo. Like he was just one of those players that was like fun to hate for me. Yeah. But now as an announcer, I think he's like by far the best announcer. Like analyzing games. Yeah, like I'm sure you would agree with that. But like, were you surprised, or maybe you knew this from like listening to him in interviews more than I did? But were you surprised that he was going to be this good at announcing?
I'm actually shocked at how fast he caught on to it. Like usually, like it takes a couple years for someone to like get good, and it's just hilarious and and astounding. Like it's just like wow, like it's just I can't believe he's already better than Phil Simms. And it's just like I think it's just his knack. He does it because he loves it, and I think that a lot of people don't realize how like intelligent, like football IQ savvy.
Yeah. I didn't realize that. Yeah. Like it's amazing when during the game he'll know exactly what the offense is going to do before they do it. And it'll be like 4th and 1 and it's like, "Oh, look for them to pass on this play. It's going to be like a bootleg to the right side." And it's exactly what he says like most of the time. So, yeah, he's very smart. He'd probably be a good coach if he wanted to do that, but obviously he's making so much money with the announcing. So, he definitely chose a good profession. But I wanted to ask you about some of the other positions. I think the Giants have the edge at running back, and I think you might disagree with this. You guys have Ezekiel Elliott, who I consider a top 5 running back in the league, and you have a very good backup, and I can't remember his name. I think Tony Pollard,
Tony Pollard,
you
yep.
know, he's been pretty good. He was very good as a rookie when Ezekiel Elliott was injured last year. But at the same time, I just think Saquon is that special of a player. So I give the Giants the edge at running
Oh,
back.
yeah.
We have Dion Lewis, who's a little bit older, as our backup. But who would you say has the edge at running back, the Giants or the Cowboys?
If we're talking about starter, I would probably say Saquon. He's fresher. I think. Listen, this is coming from a Penn State fan. I love Saquon, so
Oh,
a
cool.
bit biased there. But I think that ultimately, the thing is with Zeke. Zeke pretty much built himself to be for the long range game, right? Like he built his body at this point to take hits. And that's the type of guy he is. And I prefer to have that in a running back. But my thing is, if we're talking about straight, look, Saquon, I would argue, is more explosive. I think Saquon has gotten – he has that next gear. I'm not saying Zeke doesn't have that next gear because I do believe he does. But I think that Saquon is that type of running back where it's like whenever he gets an open lane, he just goes. And it's like he takes it to the house. With Zeke, a couple times he was able to do that, but – that's not really his game. Zeke's game is to wear you down and be physical. Saquon, like it's like the I know this is crazy, but this is like the whole Barry Sanders versus Emmitt Smith. Emmitt Smith's a guy where it's
that's
like
a good comparison.
yeah, it's like Emmitt Smith's a guy where he's going to give you consistent production. He's going to wear down a defense because I mean Emmitt wasn't looking for contact, but like that's the type of running game you have with him. But with Barry, like Barry is out there to make you miss and just take and go. And I think that with Saquon, well, here's the thing also is that Saquon's been a relatively efficient back as well, which is key. Zeke's production in terms of efficiency has degraded every single time. Now, for me, Saquon, like, you're going to pay him a lot of money, but me personally, with the running back position, unless the guy's special, you don't pay him. And Saquon's special. Look, I think that he is definitely someone to lean on as Daniel grows. But I would just hope that Jason Garrett has something lined up to where he can use him in the passing game and in the running game, because I know a lot of Giants fans, and I saw this. Sometimes you guys want to use Saquon a lot. Like it was like it's like
that was very frustrating with Pat Shermer. There was a couple of games against the Eagles, especially like we were winning by 2 touchdowns at halftime. Saquon was just unstoppable, and then in the second half, he gets the ball like 5 times,
which is ridiculous.
So it's like it's ridiculous, yeah. And I mean, if you've seen him at Penn State, I didn't watch him that much in college, but yeah, he's just ridiculous. Like his ability to just take any play and run for 80 yards or take any ball to the house, like he's tremendous. So yeah, I think Ezekiel Elliott, that's a good comparison. Like Zeke is a little bit closer to Emmett and Saquon's closer to Barry, and those were the guys in the 90s that were always the 2 best running backs, and they would get compared to each other. So it's similar in that aspect. I think that's a good way to look at it. I think at receiver, you guys have a huge edge over the Giants. I don't think I don't know if it's even worth talking about, but I do want to get your thoughts on CeeDee Lamb as your first round pick. What was your thought process when you guys were able to get him in the first round?
Okay, see, I was at work, so I wasn't able to film my reaction, because if I was to film my reaction, it probably would have gone viral, because for me, I'm a firm believer and like you score as many, like if your strength is offense, you get as many damn offensive players as possible. But for me, what was crazy was I wasn't expecting CeeDee to fall that far. What I was thinking was going to happen was he was going to, at worst, go to the Broncos or 49ers because they needed receiver help. But then he kept falling. I'm like, oh damn, like this could actually happen. But the thing what was worrisome was like I went with like, okay, knowing the Cowboys, they'll go with K'Lavon Chaisson because they might need another edge rusher, need someone like that, and that's usually how things go in the draft. They go for need rather than best player available. And I think this was just a telling sign of the coaching staff change, and I guess just that mindset change, because when a guy like CeeDee Lamb is there, you do not pass him up. And honestly, the Cowboys didn't address receiver the entire offseason. So they took him, and I was like, oh, my God, we got CeeDee Lamb. And I know all the Eagles fans were pissed because they're like, God damn it, now we got to deal with – and here's the thing, like, CeeDee Lamb gives the Cowboys so much flexibility. Like, people don't realize that. Like, if Cooper disappoints, you can let him go in a couple of years, and bam, you got your new number one. And another thing, I think CeeDee being in Dallas – helps him long-term because he doesn't have to worry about being that number one guy immediately. He can ease himself into the position. You know, he has 2 fantastic receivers to work alongside with, and Michael Gallup and Amari Cooper, who both have their own range of like skill set. Amari Cooper, one of the best route runners in the league. Michael
Yeah.
Gallup, one of those possession receivers where you can throw it up to him and he'll catch it. And working with those two guys, and CeeDee Lamb is honestly one of the best receiving prospects I've seen in a long time.
Yeah.
In a long time.
He reminds me a little bit of Odell Beckham, just with like not exactly the same, but with some of the catches that he makes, like the miraculous catches.
I would say DeAndre Hopkins.
Yeah,
is what,
and he's really good after the catch too. Like he didn't
yeah.
run the same 40 time as like Ruggs or even Judy, but if you just watch him on tape, he seems faster than his 40 time, and he's able to like run past people. And he was great at Oklahoma. So that was probably my least favorite part of the draft as a Giants fan. I was just like, I can't believe they just got CeeDee Lamb. I actually thought you guys were going to target Xavier McKinney.
Him
a lot
too.
Of mock drafts.
Yeah.
So I thought, because I would say that's your biggest weakness is your secondary. I thought Clinton-Dix was a very good pickup as a safety, because I think that's a position of need for you guys, and I think it went a little bit under the radar, but I think that was a really good pickup. But that's the one position group, safety and cornerback, that I think the Giants actually have an advantage over your guys.
I could say that, yeah.
You agree with that, or?
Yeah, I could say that. I mean, like, because the thing is we don't know what Trevon Diggs is going to look like, and ultimately we don't know how the Cowboys' new coaching staff is going to do, because I think, Chris Richard got exposed because, when he, like, it's just, I'm like, why are these corners not turning around? Like, this doesn't make any sense. And I think that also plays a factor into it. But I think, look, the Giants easily have the better, they got younger safeties and better safeties, in my opinion. And then cornerback-wise, I think the Giants at the moment have the edge. But if Trevon Diggs is who I think he can be, and I think if the Cowboys can really fix that position group and make them play better, I think that then the Cowboys can make that an advantage of theirs. But right now, I think the Giants have an advantage there.
Yeah, that's the kind of way we're building our secondary at this point, is we're emphasizing coverage guys like safeties and cornerbacks. And James Bradbury was our big free agent pickup, and hopefully he's a good number one corner. But I wanted to ask you about tight ends. I think you guys definitely have the advantage at quarterback at this point. You have the advantage. Running back is very close. You have a big advantage at receiver. But tight end, I would give the advantage to the Giants. I think that's Evan Ingram, when he's healthy, is a top 5, maybe top 10 tight end in the league, receiving wise, of course. We have some pretty good backup tight ends like Caden Smith and Levine Tololo. You guys have Blake Jarwin, who I remember burned us for 3 touchdowns in one game because we can never guard tight ends. So, but I think this is like the first year where he's like the number one guy, or maybe I'm wrong about that. But what do you think about that? Do you think the Giants have the advantage at the tight end position, or am I underrating the Cowboys guys?
No, I think it's fair. I mean, look, Evan Ingram, I loved Evan Ingram coming out of that draft class. I would have loved to have him because I love having a receiving tight end. I think that honestly, he just I really wish he gets more targets. And again, tight ends usually don't get a whole lot of targets, but I feel like he could do a lot more. I mean, he's basically Daniel Jones' security blanket. I mean, that's every tight end is a security blanket for a young quarterback. But more importantly, I mean, Blake Jarwin, I feel like his growth got stunted by Jason Witten. I thought Jason Witten was going to come in here, be the third guy on the team, and like he'll let Schultz and Jarwin do their thing. But like what would irritate the hell out of me is Blake Jarwin showed, yo, this guy is ready to go. He shows promise. I mean, like he makes plays and he's very efficient. Like whenever he gets the ball, he gets a ton of yardage. And like his after the catch ability is unreal. Like the one play against the Giants in the second game on Monday Night Football where he catches it and he takes it to the house. I'm like, damn, like this is what we got. And this is an undrafted free agent that we're talking about. But honestly, I think that the Giants have the advantage. I think what that comes down to, like, not starter-wise, I think Evan Ingram's more talented than Blake Jarwin, being completely honest here. But I don't think that Blake Jarwin's garbage, though. That, like, I think that, but you don't really need much out of a tight end position unless it's like a Travis Kelce or Gronk or something like that. But otherwise, I think that, I think the Giants have the advantage there. It's fair to say.
Yeah, I think you guys have such good receivers, though, that you're not going to need, like, I think on the Giants, the number one option in the passing game is Evan Ingram because we don't have, like, a true number one receiver. You guys can possibly have 3 number one receivers. Like, I think I think Gallup was that good last year. He really surprised me. And obviously, CeeDee Lamb is so talented, and Amari Cooper is definitely a true number one guy.
Yeah.
So I think offensive line, we talked about already a little bit. I think offensive line, you guys still have a major advantage, and that's still a strength of your guys' team.
Oh yeah.
But are you still like, are you a little worried about the center position? Because that was kind of surprising when Frederick retired.
I would say before the draft, yes, but after the draft, no. I mean, what's hilarious is the Cowboys traded up with Philadelphia, only gave up a fifth round pick, I think. I think a future six. I don't remember off the top of my head, unfortunately. I mean, to get one of the better centers that I wanted in Tyler Biadasz. I mean, Tyler
Yeah,
Biadasz,
I
I
wanted him
loved.
too.
Yeah, I mean, I loved him. I think he would have gone way earlier if the injury concerns weren't there. And I think he reminds me a lot of Travis Frederick. And what's key also is I think he could start day one for you if all things work out. And guess what? If he can't start, if he's hurt or just he's not ready yet, you got a guy in Joe Looney who I'm not very high on, but Joe Looney can be serviceable at best.
Yeah.
But I think, look, I hope he wins the job. I think he will win the job. And guess what? He's just another plug-and-play guy that then you have for another 4 or 5 years, and you can probably get him on cheap, assuming he isn't like Pro Bowl caliber or like he gets that recognition. Because, and that's something that people need to recognize too, is like you don't need to spend first-round picks a ton on offensive linemen. If you could find a guy that can work for you and the system works, then cool. Like, I mean, the Eagles showed back in 2017 with like who they had at the offensive line. I think Lane Johnson was the only number one in terms of a first round draft pick on there, and they still were one of the better offensive lines in the league that year. It just comes down to how well they are efficiently and like if all things click. That's plain and simple. And I think the Cowboys will continue to roll.
Yeah, you guys took two players that I really wanted for the Giants, like later in the draft, and both of these players fell a lot farther. I thought Biadasz could have been like a second round pick, but he played hurt like all of last year.
Yeah.
2 years ago, if he entered the draft 2 years ago, he would have been at least a second round pick, maybe even a first round pick. He was an All-American, and another player that I really liked was Bradley Anai, who I thought as a pass rusher, he's not like super athletic, but he just, he compiled sacks for I think Utah. And he's somebody I was really targeting for the Giants. I wrote an article for my like draft targets, and I really wanted him possibly in the third or fourth round, and he fell even further than that. So yeah, you guys have been drafting really well recently. It's I mean, you guys have such a talented roster. I think PFF actually ranked you guys as the sixth most talented roster in the NFL. Do you feel like they're overrating you guys, or do you kind of think that's a fair assessment?
Me personally, I'm not a big fan of Pro Football Focus, just because like I've seen a lot of their information and how they go about statistic tracking and stuff like that. And this is coming from someone like I'm not a statistics major, but for my bachelor's degree, I mean, it's a lot of like statistical analysis. And when I look at this stuff, I'm like, oh my God. But no, I do believe the Cowboys on paper are one of the best rosters in the league. I mean, look, they're relatively young. They're entering the prime years of many of their key players. And I think, I think you're being naive if you think the Cowboys are not a talented team. I've seen a lot of people very underrate the Cowboys because they hate the Cowboys or just they're that naive. I mean, look, the Cowboys are one of the better rosters in this league. It's just a matter of can they put the pieces together. I mean, last year they easily should have won the division with how things were going. They should have easily, like going back, they should have probably won 11 or 12 games, especially if certain things go certain ways. Would they have won the Super Bowl? No, probably not. But I think that I just think that the Cowboys are a really, really damn good roster. And I think that if Mike McCarthy, who's a well-seasoned coach, really damn good coach, comes in and all he has to do is be better than Jason Garrett, and that's not asking for much. And he has been for the most part with his tenure with the Packers. And if he could do that same thing he did in Green Bay with the Cowboys, I'd be very careful with how you look at the Cowboys because they got a lot of their main guys under contract for the next 3 to 4 years, and they could possibly I'm not expecting them to win the division every single year, but if 2020 goes well, I would expect the Cowboys to be a really damn good football team and a roadblock for some teams trying to get into the playoffs in the division. So
yeah, I think you guys have so much talent. I actually pick you to win a division. The last position group I want to ask you about, because it's a little bit hard to compare the Giants front seven to the Cowboys front seven, because you play a 4-3 and the Giants are primarily a 3-4, although we might be a little multiple this year. But you definitely have the advantage at linebacker. I think Jalen Smith and Van Der Esch are two of the better like inside linebackers in the entire NFL. And edge rusher is not even close just because you guys have DeMarcus Lawrence. And I thought Aldon Smith was kind of like an interesting under the radar signing by you guys. I'm not sure how much he's going to end up contributing because he hasn't played. But if I can pick one player and just like take him off your team and add him to the Giants, I think I would pick DeMarcus Lawrence because I feel like edge rusher is so valuable, especially having a dominant guy like that. So I want to ask you, if you could take one player from the Giants and just like pluck him off the Giants roster and add him to the Cowboys, who would your pick be?
Oh, it's got to be Dalvin Tomlinson easily.
Oh, wow. Okay.
It's got to be
expect
Dalvin.
That, but I like that pick. I like that
Yeah,
pick.
it has to be him, dude. It's just crazy because, like, for me, I've been wanting the Cowboys to get a interior defensive run stuffer for years, man. And I would love to have Dalvin Tomlinson, on this football team. I really do like him. Another guy that I was liking, I know he was on, I think he went to the Lions, Snacks Harrison, I think, right?
Yeah, he was a beast like a few years ago. I feel like he's a little bit over the hill, but I definitely respect that answer of Dalvin Tomlinson because most fans, I feel like, don't appreciate how good he is. He was ranked as the best player on the Giants according to PFF, and we all know PFF's not perfect, but the last 3 years, I feel like he's really gotten under the radar. He's very good against the run, but at the end of last season, he was even getting some sacks, and he's improving in that area as well. So, yeah, I think our interior defensive line with like Dexter Lawrence, who I'm really high on, and Leonard Williams, and then Tomlinson. I think that's the strength of our defense. But you guys have a different kind of defense. What are your thoughts on like real quick on like McCoy and Dontari Poe? Because they're both older guys, but I feel like they could still be decent for you. So were you happy with those signings? Like, what did you think about that?
Yeah, I was definitely ecstatic when we did that because usually the Cowboys don't really get those types of defensive tackles where they're the bigger guys that are meant for stopping the run. So I was like, wow, that's pretty good. Gerald McCoy also off the field has shown to be a really damn good leader. I wouldn't be shocked if he got a captain, got a captain position because that's the type of guy he is. And honestly, I'm not expecting like them to put up like best of the league type of stuff, but like good enough to get the job done. The Cowboys have always done bargain basement stuff at the interior defensive line, and that's something that's bugged me for many years. And I really do think that with what this coaching staff has done and the directions the front office is going in, I think that they're pretty good signings. I definitely feel like the Cowboys at some point should invest top-tier talent in the interior defensive line. I mean, we just got Neville Gallimore in the 3rd round, but I would hope to get a younger guy to go alongside Neville Gallimore if he develops well. That's just honestly how I feel about that.
Yeah, I think you guys did a good job in free agency. Like I thought HaHa Clinton Dix was another very good under the radar signing. Not a lot of people talk about that, but he's been a very solid safety for years, and he's somebody I wanted for the Giants. Obviously, we got McKinney in the draft, which I'm happy about. But yeah, man, I appreciate you coming on. I love talking football, and even though you're not a Giants fan, it's still fun to hear it. It's fun to hear like. Because obviously, if you're a Giants fan, you're going to be biased towards your own team, and it's cool to hear somebody else's perspective from like an outside perspective on the Giants. Definitely. So I appreciate it. Like I'll ask you one more question to wrap it up.
Sure.
I heard your record prediction for the Giants before. You think possibly 7-9, which is more optimistic than I thought. But what about for the Cowboys? What's your final division standings and then record for the Cowboys this year if you're going to predict?
I'll just do you a whole favor. I'll do the whole damn division. Let's see. I got the Cowboys winning the division at 11-5. Their range is between 9 to 12 wins if things go well or bad. Second, I have the Eagles at 9-7. I think at best they're 11 wins. At worst, they're 7 wins. Next, I have the Giants. The Giants at 7-9. I think that the worst they could be is maybe 6 wins. I can't see them losing more than 6 games. Or I can't see them, losing more than 10 games. And then best, I think they can definitely hit 9 wins, but 7-9. And then the Redskins, the team from Washington that's about to have their name changed.
I heard the Warriors is actually in the lead. I don't know. It's weird.
Whatever they change it to at this point, but that's another discussion. But I have them, I believe I said 6-10, if I remember. I think at worst 3 wins, at best I think 7 wins, but I cannot see them winning more than 7 games. But yeah, that's basically it. I think I'll just wrap up like my full analysis of the Giants. Look, the Giants are going in the right direction. They're still rebuilding. Are they ready to contend yet? No, but I think that as long as they continue to build around Daniel Jones, get him some better receiving options, continue to build up that offensive line, make the play calling better, and just continue building the team. I think the Giants are on the right track. I think Dave Gettleman's done a decent job. There's some moves he's made where it's like, what the hell? But otherwise, I think he's
Yeah.
done a pretty decent job with what he's been doing. So.
Yeah, it's really cool to hear that from a Cowboys fan too, because I feel exactly the same way. For like the first time in a while, I feel like we're in the upward trend, or we're like trending in the right direction, I should say. And yeah, we have a lot of young pieces that I really like, obviously with Daniel Jones and Saquon leading the way. But yeah, man, I really appreciate you coming on. This has been a lot of fun. I love talking football, especially with people like you that know so much about, you know, the Cowboys and the Giants.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I'll let you have the last word if you want to talk about your channel. I actually do have a decent amount of subscribers. I don't have that many subscribers, but the ones that I do, some of them do root for other teams like the Cowboys, other teams in the NFC East. So if you want to just, you know, talk about your channel for a bit, and then I'll wrap it up.
Yeah, sure. It's not going to take me too long. Yeah, so if you don't know who I am or you want to know where to follow me, you can follow me at SpaceCowboy17 on YouTube. You know, I talk about the Cowboys. I try not to talk about other teams because that's not what I like to do, but I might at some point depending on how my schedule looks with my new job. But I think ultimately, yeah, I think that's just my thing is I like to cover the Cowboys. I love talking football. I can talk about football all damn day. But yeah, if you want to go check out some more Cowboys content and you want to learn more about the Dallas Cowboys from someone, by all means, you can follow me. You know, I always like watching other content creators as well from other teams because I want to try and get as much information as possible so that I can form an educated opinion. So, like, I'll listen, you know, to Giants Alliance, Bad Dog Sports, The Entertainer, Talking Sports. A bunch of other people. I'm just referring to Giants, you know, content creators because that's the case. But I try to do that so it helps me out. So it's not like I'm like, because I don't like doing, you know, just talking out of my ass when I'm talking about another team.
Yeah, that's cool. I'm actually going to be on Entertainer's live stream tonight. He has like a bunch of people on his show on
Oh, that's
Sundays,
cool.
but you should definitely reach out to him to try to get on one of his streams too, because he's a really nice guy, obviously an awesome content creator. But yeah, man, I appreciate you coming on my show. This has been a lot of fun. I'm going to try to put this up maybe later today, but by the latest tomorrow. And
Oh, good.
yeah, I appreciate it, man. This has been a lot of fun. Thank
Oh,
you.
it was definitely. Thank you so much for having me on.
And please subscribe, please like this video, and give me a thumbs up.